Enthusiasm with multi-tonal voice.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Hello, Harry Smith.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. Edan,
Yes.
how are you feeling today?
Rather fine.
Good. Don't really know how to introduce. We need to introduce the podcast, don't we? So we know who's going to be
little bit closer.
talking. But then I feel like doing a formal intro feels a bit awkward. I'd rather just start
It's a
talking.
bit formal.
Contradicts our title, Faffin about.
Yeah. But maybe we shouldn't do it.
Is that what you've called it? Faffing about?
I don't know.
Because other podcasts, you just when you play it, it says in the text who's on. They don't introduce who's. They just sort of start talking, don't they?
Yeah, but we want to know how Harry sounds. If there's like 30 people.
Yeah, true.
And we haven't got a topic, or we're just gonna wing it.
We're just gonna wing it. Just having a chat for an hour. Just what do you think?
Well, let's talk about you first, Kirk. Let's talk about how the Grow Native thing's been going, because this is impressive. And that the most recent video looks good. It looks professional, looks nice. I'm buying into it. I like the idea, and the wildflower meadow looks exceptionally good. Like really like that, absolutely cracking.
Yeah.
I had my sort of skepticisms when you first sort of started doing it, and I thought, are they going to end up with a muddy puddle and some wilted turfs that die in the sun? And I take my hat off, eat my hat if I have one. That looks it looks good.
It's one of those things you just never quite. You just have to give things a go, don't you? So just take the risk that it won't work. But
what is growing native?
What is growing native? I think the best description I say at the moment is a wildlife landscaping and garden design business. But yeah, so the idea is to create areas that attract wildlife into the garden, but also look visually appealing as well. So sort of
Such a soothing voice.
And you got this sort of idea from working. You've worked in the ecological consultancy industry, haven't you? And you've seen how it works. And I think you saw a niche where you could do better. You could and you could do it yourself as well. You didn't need to be working for a company. And I think you're quite artistic as well. And you're restricted when you work for someone else what you can do and your remit and that kind of thing. I think you strike me as the kind of person that likes working for themselves. They want their own direction, their own kind of. You enjoy the challenge, so it's more rewarding. I think.
I think it's a good. Yeah, it seems to just sort of come together sort of organically a bit.
Yeah.
But,
good.
I think it's a good sort of culmination of past lives, really.
Yeah.
But I think I've realised with the ecological consultancy, which obviously do as well, but so much of it seems like it's obviously very worthwhile, but a lot of it seems like damage limitation.
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
nice to feel.
Yeah.
It's nice to create something that people can enjoy. And even though I've had my formal education's been in science, I'm actually naturally more artistic. I do enjoy creating things,
and you're quite practical as well. So that you throw the two in together, and you've got you can be a landscape architect on a very small scale and work for yourself. That's and that's essentially what you're doing, isn't it? Really, it's
But I've really enjoyed it. Like you say, I enjoy the challenge. I've enjoyed enjoying the sort of intellectual pursuit of working out how businesses run and.
There's so much behind the scenes, isn't there, with business stuff? That you don't, especially as a PYE myself, you don't appreciate that really. You don't see it so much.
Like I say, with
it's a business adventure, you could say.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a good opportunity with like Paul as a partner and Mum helping as well. They can sort of draw off their years of business experience, and hopefully I can sort of. Speed up the learning process.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely very jealous of having Paul and Sally at your fingertips. Is cool. Yeah. Anyone.
Hand gestures in that one.
It is good. I love the wildflower turf product though, because we know how difficult it is to establish a wildflower meadow from scratch.
Yeah,
and even though we were saying before, it is expensive, but it's actually trying to do it from scratch successfully is probably it's probably a false economy because the amount of work
that goes
work
into
it
actually
takes, weeding
the
it,
upkeep
getting them
and
to actually,
maintenance of
grow,
it,
maintenance,
the watering, the
yeah.
weeding out the the roodles and stuff. It's
and
yeah.
you're talking probably years to actually get it
Yeah.
going.
You spend a bit more money on the finished article, so to speak, and
whereas with the turf, you prepare the ground properly, and it's already got a root system underneath, and as soon as you put that down, that's an instant barrier to any weeds growing up. And it's as long as you do what you're supposed to.
It's blooming beautiful.
Yeah,
it's blooming beautiful.
Blooming lovely.
But I guess this is this is why I like being friends with people like this. Young entrepreneurs. They work
Single?
hard and they single. That's the most important. I'm not. Hang on. Whoa. I'm going to get in trouble now. That's
Twinkle in their eyes.
That's why I think that's why I'm attracted to Edan. Oh, hang on, this has come out wrong. This is why it's nice to be friends with someone like Edan as well. Another young entrepreneur.
Sorry, our love doesn't have to be hidden.
Yeah, you don't have to hide it anymore.
Yeah. Can you tell us a bit about Landed Media? It's just so tell us what it's about a little bit. Like
I'm using the equipment to make this.
Yes.
Very well fleshed out there. Brilliant. Yeah.
Video production company.
What do we say?
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell.
It's like you're saying.
I feel like
it's
you're
nice having interesting friends that do have unique skills.
I feel like you're underselling yourself there, Edan. Like you're an artist and you're good at what you do, and you've summed it up in like one sentence.
I make pictures and moving pictures.
Yes, you're very talented.
Again,
talented videographer and editor.
Mm.
But yeah, it's promoting yourself is a tricky art.
Yeah,
it's not something that comes naturally.
Humble.
Yeah, it's not something that comes naturally to me. But again,
well, that's why I'm here. I'm promoting both of you.
But also with, like I say, with the business, it's sort of something I need to get better at, and sort of you slip it into conversations, and because you never know where a lead might come.
You never know who's listening.
Yeah, but it's it's self-promotion whilst still being humble. It's a fine.
Yeah, if you're shoving it down someone's throats, they're not going to, especially in the kind of landscaping and that sort of industry. You're inviting yourselves into people's homes, and you want them to come to you because you want to sell an idea to them that their garden should look like some of your ideas and some of your things that you're trying to create. And I think if you come across big-headed and bolshy and really corporate, people don't want to be part of that, especially in their own home.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just finding a way of mentioning it. You can go too far the other way. If you don't talk about it at all, then people aren't mind readers, are they?
No one's going to find you. You got to talk about it a bit. You've got to shout a little bit.
Sort of meet yourself halfway.
Well, you could just look at the current kind of. Any sort of media or advertising, there's so much of it. There's the market's flooded with some things. If you didn't shout about it, no one would ever find you. No one would ever hear about it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's good and bad, isn't it?
Yeah, I like to surround myself with people that are humble, but they're concise. They say what they need to say. You don't want to be too braggy. I don't like people that are too. Lee calls it flexing. Showing off their goods,
Look at that vein in that muscle.
I just think I respect people that they do what they do it well, and they don't brag too much about it. If you're trying to sell yourself, you could do it really well, and I do that. Like if I'm meeting with a potential client, I'll give it all I got. But to friends, I need
Is that like clothes on or clothes off? Or?
Well, the Speedos are already in the trunk, so they're ready.
But just passionate people. It almost doesn't matter what it is. If someone's sort of just intellectually curious about things, they've got a bit of fire in their belly. Yeah, you can. It's sort of it's contagious, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it goes true for a lot of things. I mean, it's more about the person. It's about the passion of the person, the passion in the person. You don't want too much passion inside you, but
So speaking of passion, so what was going on in the farm today?
Today, it's been the last couple of weeks. So I should probably talk about a bit more what I do. So I work for the Essex Wildlife Trust, and I manage a big nature reserve. I took a sidestep out of environmental consultancy and got into going back to what I'd done when I was slightly younger, and and got into managing a nature reserve basically. So it's a grazing marsh, and it's got sheep and cattle, and it's a working farm. So there's always something happening. There's always something going on. There's always some sort of drama with farming, which it makes it exciting. You know, as a young man, I enjoy that. You know, it's good. You know, you go out in the morning, you never know what you're going to find. You never know what you're going to see. But we've had quite a bit of drama this week. So we had one of our with farming. There's always casualties of war. So there's always animals dying and that sort of thing. It's just part and parcel of the nature of it. But unfortunately, this week we lost one of our prime bulls. So we lost a Charolais bull. He was an old chap. He was about 12 years old. But when a big animal dies in an area of the farm that's difficult to get to, it creates a lot of, you know, it's a lot of hassle, and it takes a lot out of the day, and there's only so many hours in the day.
How did you get it out, and what did he taste like?
Well, did he die of old age? Or?
He died of old age. Yeah, he was
Okay.
a real old boy. You know, he lived for sort of 12, 13 years. So he was he was called Diablo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but he was a big old fella. But you think, he's had a pretty good life. You know, he every year he gets put in with 30 odd ladies. He gets to have his way with them. You know,
It's quite shocking, isn't it, when you see selectively bred farm animals the size of their testicles?
It is unbelievable.
It's quite staggering, isn't it?
It was.
Are you jealous?
I mean,
if someone put you and they said, right, for the next 12 years, you're going to die at the end of this 12 years. You know that you're going to die at some point.
Yeah.
But you get to mate with 30 women. How many a year?
Every year,
30 women.
You know.
Like, let's say two ladies a month.
You mean in the same situation?
Yeah.
In a field, just constant.
Just
constantly there.
just in the barn.
I mean, to be honest, there's not a lot else. There's not a lot else to do in a field. That's the trouble. You know,
No.
At the end of the day, you're either going to be eating or you're going to be mating. So
Yeah.
and I know which one I'd rather be doing.
Yeah.
Preferably
But
preferably both.
Yeah.
But you know,
What's
at
the
the same
term though
time.
when you become deconditioned to hedonistic pursuits? No longer.
hedonistic.
Mm.
You've lost me there. You'll have to
I don't know.
define
do
that.
do you think they get deconditioned to it? And they're just like, oh god.
It's another thing to do.
Yeah.
Oh
Nah,
no,
they love it.
no!
Borderless now.
These animals, they're full of testosterone. They're absolutely raging. They, they can't get enough of it. Like,
Harry's had
it's,
first-hand experience.
Yeah.
It's get off me. No, it's that's what they're born and bred to do.
Well,
Like
it's nice you're still doing it the old-fashioned way, and not
artificial
the
insemination.
artificial insemination. It's no fun for anyone, is it?
no, I think it's
Get the glove, Harry.
there's pros and cons to it, both sides. But I think AI, which say artificial insemination, I think is actually more expensive. You're paying for that luxury to have the prime bull semen in like a little strip that gets inserted in, and it's much more.
Have you watched videos of the whole process as well? They get the bull to like mount.
You got way too much
Well,
free time.
like a block.
I've seen
Have
the
you
sort
seen
of
it?
the milking process, so to speak. Yeah, it's I'm not actually a bulls. I've actually been to my mum works at an agricultural college, and I went to their stud, and I got to see a
You
stat.
watched animal porn, is what you watched.
Essentially,
What did your mum do?
Oh, my mum wasn't. Hang on. Let's just backtrack. Let's structure this correctly. So, I was at one of the studs, and I was just observing, and they basically bring one of the stallions in, and then to get the semen from the stallion.
Did you have your pads on or off?
They get it. They get it to mount they call it it's like a dummy or a dummy
who does
horse
it?
or something.
Vet, fluffer.
No,
What do they
it's
call
it's the stud hands. They
Stud hand.
stud hand. Yeah.
Right.
They get it to mount
That's what he does.
Yeah. Oh, but I missed the critical bit. They actually bring a mare in to get him riled up. So there's a female horse that they bring in to sort of like coax him on, like get him like kind of all he's frothing at the mouth basically.
Yeah.
So when he comes in, he's ready to do.
tease.
He's ready to do the business. It is. He basically tease him and then he does his job. And
That little effect.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Just in case you didn't know what it sounded like.
Thank you.
Yeah. But that was interesting. Yeah. So that was one of the dramas we had this week with the bull going, and then the other thing we had was
Rest in peace.
rest in peace, Diablo. The next thing we had was all the steer and heifer calves got weaned off from their mothers. So we had a 50 strong herd of cows suddenly looking for their little babies. So they're going around mooing and breaking fences, crossing ditches. They ended up on the seawall.
Is that a natural thing, or is that what made them separate?
Well, we separated them, so they were of an age where they were old enough to go off off to market. They weren't actually going for meat; they were getting sold to another farmer who will then raise them for meat. So, well, they're what they called store animals. So you essentially someone else would buy them and store them and raise them for meat. But so they got weaned off from their mothers, which was it had to be around that sort of time because the mothers are in calf and they're actually giving birth at the moment now. So, so we wanted to get their older siblings off of their older calves off of them. So they obviously when they started giving birth, they were they could just deal with their newborn calves, and you don't want the older calves nicking the milk and all that sort of thing. So we had that happen, and then the cows were everywhere, breaking fences and all this hoo-ha, and I had a call at 7:30 in the morning, and I got to go chase a load of cows back down into the correct field and that sort of thing. So that was that created a load of work.
Hang on, why did the cows push the fence over?
Because they were trying to look for their calves, so they were.
Oh, sorry, it was. I was thinking you were separating. I
We think
wasn't
Harry
listening.
was
I was thinking you were
pushing the
separating
fences.
lambs. You were separating calves.
Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah,
I wasn't listening properly.
Yeah, no, we haven't got like
I think I blanked out for a second.
mutant lambs pushing over fences.
Yeah, I was like,
go
oh,
crazy.
really?
How big are these sheep? Like, yeah. So we had to deal with that, and then what else happened? And then the calves are being born right now, so it's every morning as a newborn, and
Wow, that's awesome.
You got to be pretty watchful and careful. You can get a calf that gets stuck and that kind of thing. So it's it's pretty hands on at this time of year, and it's being watchful and.
So
but I enjoy it.
How do breeding seasons work with cattle then?
It all depends on when farmers want to send stuff to market, and it's all
So like spring lamb, is that just happens to be the farming cycle? They don't have to calve.
A lot of lambs are born in spring because it's some of the conditions are starting to get better. You've come out of winter, you're going to have a flush of grass growth. So it's a traditional time to have a baby animal in spring. But obviously, the lamb we're eating in spring that was born the following year.
Will they have more lambs throughout the summer? Or is it just the one?
Most ewes probably only have one lamb a year, or if they might have twins and they might have triplets. Depends on the.
Yeah.
Usually,
but they won't give birth in the spring and then get pregnant again, have another one in the summer.
No, it's not. Because the gestation period of a sheep's 5 months.
Right.
The sheep on our farm, the ram went in April, and the ewes are just about to give birth at the end of the month now, so we're in end of September.
Right. Okay.
So they're only going to have one sort of lambing session this year.
So you do it a different way round. So a lot of people would be impregnating them now through.
Yeah, that's right. To have them, to time them, have them in spring. Yeah, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, in upland areas, obviously, you don't want to be having lambs that really. When you've got harsh winters and that sort of thing up on like the hills and that kind of thing, so you're always going to try and time it for spring. Whereas in the lowlands, it doesn't matter quite so much. Especially if you've got that shelter available and that sort of thing. People don't. The weather's a lot more. The weather's a lot kinder. You can get away with having lambs at different times of the year, and it's all about a lot of big farmers. They don't want all the calves and all the lambs to come all at once. It's all about cash flow. So it's all about spreading. You'll send a load off to market in November, then you'll send a load off to market in April, then you'll send a load off to market in July. It's all about you don't store everything up and then send it all off and get one big paycheck. It's all about breaking it down, having a cash flow come in.
So how does it work with cattle then? Will they normally have 2 a year?
No, cows again 1 a year, but it's and that the suckler herds that we've got on the nature reserve, they have a calf once a year, and so the ones that are calving at the moment will have that calf with them all the way through till next year. So they're usually about a year old when they get weaned off, and then go on for store animals to be fattened up for market for meat.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. When people look in a field and they think, oh, it's just a sheep in a field, there's a lot. There's so much that happens behind it, and then the planning and the kind of the sort of the strategic kind of side of farming as well. The business side of it. There's a lot behind it. I mean, we're not as a wildlife trust, we're not involved with that. We have a grazier that pays to keep his animals there. We just check them, and then he's the kind of the brains behind the outfit, if you like. He's the one that's doing all the kind of he's the one that's selling them and taking them to market and taking them to abattoirs, all this sort of thing.
Is that barn owl camera all set up on a live feed?
We did have it set up on a live feed, but we're still in the process of trying to get it to work again. But that's been an interesting. It's been a learning curve for me, because it's what we've been putting several. I've never had to deal with fiber cable before, so it's basically been teaching myself how to install fiber cable and some of the basics of around the sort of the hardware and stuff. So
we had to dig it into the ground to the workshop.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so we upgraded our barn owl camera to an HD security camera, and then that has an Ethernet cable which attaches into a fibre optic cable, which is in an armoured sheath, and then that runs all the way down to our office, where it then is converted again via Ethernet and a little converter into my computer, which then streams it out online. But we've got a problem with the cable somewhere. The fibre cable's been kinked, I think. So we're still working on that. But I'd like to get it fixed before our AGM. So we've got the annual general meeting for the Wildlife Trust happening, Essex Wildlife Trust happening at the end of September. So I'd like to try and get it fixed for that.
Nice. I forget when they nest.
Technically barn owls can actually lay. They can lay at any time of the year. But they probably won't be successful in winter. But the peak sort of breeding season, they're usually laying in April, and they'll fledge kind of sort of August sort of time. That's kind of the main sort of. It's 10 weeks, so it's from sort of laying to hatching. But they don't lay all at the same time, or rather they don't incubate all at the same time. So they'll lay one egg. And then they'll be carrying on hunting, and they'll be out of the nest and that sort of thing. And then they'll come back and lay another one. And then once they've laid sort of between 4 to 6 eggs, they'll then sit on them and incubate them. So that's why the reason barn owls chicks all at different sizes, because they all hatch out at different times. Yeah.
Have you had any races recently?
No, I haven't really. I've been pretty busy because I've been pretty busy with my bees actually recently. So I'm a beekeeper. I've only got 2 hives, but this is the kind of time of year where it starts getting busy for beekeepers, because you're thinking about taking your honey off and extracting it, and then you're thinking your winter preparations. How are you gonna? Because most beekeepers feed their bees if they've taken honey off them going into the winter, and then it's then how you're going to keep them insulated as well.
Do you think you'll actually have a surplus this year? Be able to harvest some honey?
Well, I have. Yeah, I've harvested. Yeah, so I've had 10 litres of honey off my bees so far.
10 litres.
Yeah, so
nice.
I've probably.
So I was starting to get the impression it was not it seemed like a labour of love. Like a lot of work goes into it for what you get.
There is a lot of work that goes into it, but I think I finally cracked. I mean, this is my second year of keeping bees, and I've cracked it this year, and I've had 2 strong colonies, and they've been queens that are laying very well and have produced a lot of workers, and the colonies have grown to a good size.
Were either of the queens from your original?
No, they weren't.
Stock
They weren't. Unfortunately, I had to restock both colonies this year from new swarms, because the beast from the east wiped out both my colonies last year, so right. they weren't strong colonies going into the winter.
Yeah, one was really strong. I remember
one was really strong, and one was a bit weak.
But you didn't manage to get any surplus honey, did you?
No, I didn't get any honey. They were both swarms as well in that year, and I just don't think they weren't prime swarms, and I got them late on in the season as well. So they were swarms that were kind of end of June, mid-June sort of time, which is quite late in the season for swarms.
Yeah. So people say they have personalities, don't they? Swarms. Like
well,
some will be chilled out. Some will
bees
be a bit angsty.
Bees have been slightly domesticated in a sense, in terms of you've got different strains of bees. So it's no different to like livestock or like sheep breeds or cattle breeds. You can get one of the classic ones in the UK is the Buckfast bee. So that was kind of, it's a strain of bee, or a breed of bee, if you like, that's been bred by, it's Buckfastly down in Devon by monks. So it's
I was going to say they all pissed.
Yeah, on
Buckfast triangle.
Buckfast wine, fortified wine. There's another story there, Glaswegian story, but that's for another day. So they, so you've got these different strains of bees, and you can get some bees, some bee colonies are really friendly, and not friendly in the sense that they come out and shake your hand and like, yeah, go on, help yourself, mate. Not that sort of friendly, but they're
the smoker.
They're much more. Yeah, I've got a smoker. Yeah, but they're much more kind of docile. They don't, when you open the hive up, they're not straight at you trying to sting you. They're kind of, they're just easier to handle. Whereas some colonies, you can open them up and they are straight at you. They'll be bouncing off your bee visor and that sort of thing, and they're a lot more difficult to deal with. And it makes any job in the hive, like inspections, looking for the queen, treating a hive or something like that, it just makes anything like that a lot more difficult.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have any other ventures that you're thinking of pursuing?
Well, because I feel like I've cracked the beekeeping this year. It's a great hobby. I'm a little bit like Fantastic Mr. Toad. As soon as I've completed or done one thing, I feel like I'm on to the next thing. The beekeeping has got me hooked. I really enjoy it, so I'm definitely going to continue doing it next year. It's just making sure I can get the bees through the winter. But I love the idea. I love producing my own things. I've got my own little veg patch where we just produce a few veggies for the garden and things. So this year we've had fennel and chard and beetroot and green beans, and it's just been really satisfying. And we've got like a fig tree in the garden and a walnut tree. And it's lovely, cool. just collecting your own things.
I really want to do some more growing next year.
Yeah. I mean, we're not, by no means, we're not, self-sustainable in any way. It's just nice to supplement shop bought things with a few things to grow yourself.
Earlier you were saying you were going to get some lambs.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to come on to. Yeah, I love producing my own things. So the honey has been great. Actually having an animal that's produced something, and also it's been quite nice because of the conservation side of things. Wild honeybees aren't doing Apis mellifera, which is the Latin name for honeybee, European honeybee. They're not doing that well, so it's nice to actually be looking after something and providing a home for it, as well as getting a product out of it, some produce out of it. So I mean that kind of led me down the route of going, and I've always liked the kind of the sort of the farming side of things, and working for a year on the nature reserve with sheep and cattle has just really kind of cemented it for me that I really I'd love to get some of my own animals. So I've been looking at getting some of my own sheep. So, but I wanted to get something that was a bit interesting, a bit different, something that was not sort of the commercial run of the mill. And there's a lot of rare breeds out there. There's a lot of breeds that are, on the brink of disappearing in terms of sheep. I think it's important that we don't lose these breeds because of the genetic diversity. We don't want to end up where we're in a situation where we've only got like a handful of sheep breeds, and we've lost all that genetic diversity. A lot of the wild sheep that these breeds would have derived from, they no longer exist. So their genes are now only present in some of these rarer breeds, and genetic diversity is incredibly important, and that's why I'd like to keep a rare breed of sheep, and try and extend the lineage, and improve the genetic diversity of a breed. So. Well, the one I've chosen, or the one I'm going for, is a Castle Milk Moritz, which are quite an unusual breed. They're a cross of 3 different sheep breeds. So they've got Manx Lothian in them, which is a breed of sheep off the Isle of Man, and then they've also got Shetland in them, which is obviously a small sheep breed from the Shetland Islands up in Scotland, and then you've also got wild mouflon in them, and this is the bit that really intrigues me, because the wild mouflon is a wild sheep breed, if you like. You'd get these up in sort of alpine areas, and they the ones with the big curly horns, really muscular looking animals, especially the rams. They're the ones that go headlong into each other, bang, fighting, and so it was. But the Castle Milk Moritz have got all 3 of these breeds in them, and they were bred by a chap who owned the Castle Milk Estate in Scotland, and he basically bred this sheep to look good in his estate grounds. But so they're quite a neat looking sheep. They're sort of a medium sized kind of, and they've got short tails as well. So they keep themselves quite clean. They're easy to look after. They lamb easily, and they're just an interesting breed. And they look nice. So that's what I've decided to go with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are you thinking in terms of culinary?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's so the only reason the reason breeds go extinct because there's no demand for them. There's no breeds have arisen out of a need for either milk or wool or something like, or milk, wool, or meat. And if that need no longer arises, we tend to forget about that breed, and it gets left in the wayside, and the next commercial breed comes through and takes over. So what I'd like to do is set up a local community meat box where people can purchase half a lamb, and I will then deliver that locally. Or if it's further afield, consider some sort of delivery service. But it's I like the idea of producing something that's a little bit different. It's a lot more love that's gone into it. It'll be extensively produced, so it means there won't be hundreds of sheep in a field. They've got their own nice bit of space, and they'll probably be a little bit older as well than an average lamb. I'm considering of not even selling them as lamb. I'll sell them as something that's called hogget. Now, hogget is older than lamb. It's lamb is anything under 12 months, and I will sell them either between 12 to 18 months. So they're a little bit older, which means they've had that little bit chance to live, have had a bit of better quality of life, and I believe there's more flavour in hogget as well. It's an animal that's lived longer. It's had a chance to put down a bit of fat. It's a chance for a bit of marbling as well in the meat. And the hogget that I've tried, I preferred to lamb actually. So that's something I'd like to. That's the goal with the end product of the animal.
You should definitely film different stages of the process. I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it'd be interesting. I'd love to have a little film of them arriving at my first. I'm renting a little piece of land at the moment, and I'd love to film them arriving there, and the start of this venture. It'd be quite good.
Definitely. It's it's just, I think it's great just to have that sense of connection to where your food's come from.
Oh,
we've always been both passionate about.
Yeah, well, when you think about it, when you go in the shop, you buy a piece of beef or a piece of lamb. You don't know very, very, very often. The only thing it's got on it is maybe the origin. So it might say UK produced. You don't know how old that lamb was, or if it is lamb. You don't know the breed of animal it was. You don't know the age of it. You don't know what it was grazing on, what habitat. Was it from lowlands? Was it highlands? Was it sort of estuary, coastal? You don't know any of the story behind that animal. You don't know who looked after it. You don't know the welfare. You don't know any of the medication side of things. We're so sort of used to just eating some sort of plastic wrapped kind of piece of meat that we're so far removed from the actual kind of the process and the actual the kind of the work that's gone into something.
Yeah.
And that's something
disconnected.
We're very disconnected, and it's something I'd like to kind of sort of change a little bit. But that's one of the ideas behind the meat box as well, is that anyone who actually purchases the lamb, what I want to offer to them is that they can actually, I will run these days where people can come down and actually see the animals, see what we do. I'll bring a few animals up into a corral that people can have a look at and see, and it gives me an opportunity to talk about the animal and talk about the food and talk about their role as well, because the piece of land that I'm actually renting, the sheep will be providing a conservation purpose as well. So we'll actually be conservation grazing with the sheep. So conservation grazing is where you use an animal to maintain a habitat in a certain way. So the idea is with the piece of land that I'll be grazing, the sheep will be keeping the sward short for wading birds and sort of wintering birds that visit these coastal areas, and then they use these coastal grasslands for feeding on. So that's one of the other aspects of owning the livestock as well, that there's actually a conservation benefit to them as well. And this is something I'd like to talk to people as well. And it's how we can use animals to our benefit in terms of not just meat, but also in an environmental way as well.
Absolutely. I was looking forward to you getting pigs. What happened to that?
Well, yeah, pigs are a lot of work, and also the piece of ground I'm renting, I don't think they'd be too happy on the because obviously pigs turn everything over. They're like an absolute plough. They just go through everything, and as endearing as they are,
Put it forward
and
as a suggestion.
No. And also the other thing I've looked at with pigs is they require a lot more input, so I'd have to actually feed pigs as well. So there'll be a lot more. Whereas if I've got them on grass and I've got enough grass for the sheep, I don't have to be buying surplus food. That's the idea anyway.
Yeah. Do you reckon that'd let you have a beef steer in the long run?
Well, you never know. Sheep are very easy. Sheep I can manage. You know, I can go out in a field, and if there's something wrong with the sheep, I can run it up with a quad bike, or even catch it by hand in a pen, and I can you can deal with it there and then. Usually, cattle are because they're a lot bigger. There's a lot more involved with them. So you have to legally have a cattle crush if you keep cows on your land. So you've got to have a way of being able to handle them, and then there's it's just a bigger animal, and there's more work involved. In some ways they are easier. Cows they can live a lot longer, and they don't have quite so many problems sometimes as sheep. But actually this year we found it's been the opposite. We've had because of the very dry season we've had on the grazing marsh on the reserve, we've found that actually a lot of the grass seed has dried out, and it's been getting in the cow's eyes. So we've had a lot of issues with eyes with the cattle, whereas the sheep have actually been fine.
There's often sheep because sheep are mountain animals, really, aren't they?
Yeah,
isn't that why they get so many foot problems?
That is one of the issues with
boggy
sheep.
Field.
Yeah, a lot, especially some of the lowland breeds of sheep. They're so far removed from their original ancestor. They're squat animals. They can't run very quick. They're pretty fat, most of them, and they're pushing out lambs that are probably too big for the size of the animal as well, the size of the mother, the ewe. So there's all these. I mean, this has all been created through humans breeding these animals for hundreds of years. So it's they're very far removed from their wild ancestors. Their wild ancestors would have been, like you said, they would have been in upland areas, maybe alpine. They would have been on rocky ground where they're constantly wearing their feet down. And sheep hate water. If you ever get sheep near water, they never want to run through it. They always want to. They'll sort of they'll titter around it and jump over it. And I suppose
as well, if there's soft mud in the river, they haven't got big wide feet, have they? They get
stuck. They get stuck very easily. Sheep, and especially the domestic, the sort of lowland domestic breeds do, and and they get issues like foot rot and that sort of thing all the time. And one of the issues we have is that their feet grow all the time. They're meant to be worn down on rock. When man's been breeding sheep, the things they've been looking for is the amount of meat on them, the amount of wool on them, and if they produce milk in some cases. And one of the things that hasn't been bred out of sheep is the fact that their feet just grow and grow and grow. Because it's not been seen as, it's not a commercial side to sheep's feet. So one of the issues with them is that they get these massive long grown, what you call it, the claw. On a sheep's foot, and it gets really, really large, and you have to trim these back. And if they sort of start growing over, they can get muck and dirt trapped in that, and then that gets infected, and then you've got to trim it back, and then you've got to use an antiseptic sort of antifungal sort of spray, and all these sorts of things. So it's the sheep don't come without their challenges.
Whereas the cattle would have come from, originally bred from wild oryx, wouldn't they? And they were more of a forest species,
that would have been. Well, there's a bit of a misconception there. Some of the reading I've done recently is we wouldn't have had. People talk about the historic habitats of the UK being something like a squirrel would have been able to run from Land's End to John O'Groats and not touch the floor. But I think in reality it probably would have been more of a sort of wood scrub kind of habitat, similar to what you see in Africa with the spiny areas of bush and then open areas of grassland. It would have been a mix of these habitats.
Imagine a lot more wetland as well.
Yeah, man has dried out a lot of our wetlands. We've dried a lot of our marshy areas. We've canalised a lot of our rivers, and we don't have the sort of levels of salt marsh that we would have had sort of historically. So we've lost a lot of those wetland habitats. The reserve I work on, Blue House Farm, it's a grazing marsh. It's a completely artificial man-made habitat that's behind a sea wall. Most of it's below sea level. It would have historically been salt marsh. and it was closed off from the sea to improve it for agriculture and for grazing and for arable crops.
Yeah, so we have to sort of be cautious using the word natural, isn't it? Isn't it?
Yeah. Well, people talk about wilderness as well, and that's a bugbear of mine as well. Wilderness is something that's I in my mind, in sort of the definition of wilderness, is something that's not been touched by man. It's something that's it's naturally occurred and evolved into that habitat, and very few of those exist in the world at all. Man has touched so many parts of the globe. There's very few kind of pristine habitats left. Yeah, I mean, I like to talk about things being wild. I mean, certainly the nature reserve at Blue House Farm, it is definitely wild. Sometimes of the year there, especially in the winter when you've got the Brent geese flying over, and you've got massive myriads of waders and murmurations of overwintering birds. It's incredible. It is wild, and it is a functioning ecosystem and good quality habitats. But it's definitely not a wilderness, but it is a wild place.
Yeah, it's like we had that conversation about ponds, didn't we? Now, a pond is great for wildlife, but it almost always needs to be man-made at this stage. But there would have been a time,
unless there's
sort of, thousands of years ago when there was a lot more wetland where ponds would have occurred more naturally. Yeah. But now they tend to be dug, and then if you leave them to their own devices, they'll eventually.
Yeah, and unless that water body is of a certain size and a certain depth and a certain substrate on the bottom, it's always going to want to succeed. You'll get things like common reed and bulrushes and what they call emergent vegetation as it's growing out of the water. This eventually dries the pond out, and then it would succeed into maybe grassland or then scrub and that sort of thing. So you have to have something that's keeping it open, that's keeping it wet.
But then you wouldn't call it, even though it's been dug by humans, you wouldn't not call it natural necessarily. It's become a habitat that's reliant on human intervention to.
It depends on the situation, because you will get some ponds that will stay naturally open just because of the way certain animals use them and that sort of thing, and the nature of the sort of the land. If it remains wet enough, you might get swamped by reeds or something like that, but it would still stay wet. It would still be a sort of a wetland habitat. But you're right. Yeah, if some certainly small ponds are very susceptible to it, with the influx of vegetation and then growing and becoming dry. Yeah, so they do need that intervention and that management at times to keep them to prevent them from succeeding into a different habitat.
Yeah, absolutely. How long have we been going for, Ida? I didn't look what
we've been hitting on. 42 minutes.
42 minutes. Time flies when you're having fun. Yeah,
absolutely.
I feel like I've done it. Yeah, I feel like
calves, lambs, pigs, bees. It's all happening.
It's all happening. Yeah,
all happening. I've been my current experiment. I've been still getting up early at the weekend. I read that it takes 2 to 3 weeks for your body to actually adapt to a new
time regime.
Yeah, for your body clock to actually change.
Oh, right.
So I thought, if you get up early a week and then get up really late at the weekends, your body doesn't switch gears. Yeah, I've been pushing on with that. So I'll update you next time if that's actually worked.
Well,
I'm just really tired.
I guess because I've been working a few weekends now, I have been getting up about 7:30 at the weekends anyway, and
you find you'll actually just naturally do that now rather than dragging your ass out of bed.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't seem
too bad. How are you in the mornings? You're not a morning person.
I'm not a morning person.
Horrible,
I'm not too bad. I think it depends on what I've got to do. To be honest, I think a big thing of it is psychological. I've got so many projects and things I'm doing at the moment, and the little things that I need to get done, and both with work and sort of hobbies and things in my own time that are I always have such a drive. When I wake up, and I'm like, usually it's like clockwork. I can just get straight out of bed.
It definitely makes a difference, but I think people are naturally morning people, like up and go.
Yeah,
they can't. I think some people just, like myself, just feel rough in the mornings.
Yeah,
it's hard to. I think that's probably genetic. I'm sure.
Yeah,
but it's hard to get across to someone who is a morning person.
Well,
they're like, it's just psychological and just. You kind of go, no, it's not.
Are you a get up and go person? Because I remember living in London, and I had roommates that were they were like, yeah, I'm just going to wake up in the morning. Every morning they go running. I'm like, I could not wake up in the morning and go for a run. I like slow burning it. If I've got to go to work, I'll do that. But if I do wake up at like 6 or something, naturally, I'll just be like, yeah, chill for at least an hour and a half before I even think about doing something active.
Yeah. Well, the other way I know as well, the way I'm eating now, on a ketogenic diet, running mainly on fats, that I'm much better in the mornings.
Oh right.
And I don't need quite as much sleep.
Yeah.
And I'll get up and I've got sort of a morning routine I do now, and I'll just have black coffee with a bit of coconut oil, and I won't eat until midday. Whereas I could never have done that before in a million years. So there definitely are factors that influence how you feel.
I find seasonal as well. So if I in the summertime and spring, when it's warmer, I wake up so much quicker, so much easier. You know, it doesn't. I think it's because I don't want to waste the day. It's and that's much more of an incentive to get up. But in the wintertime, if it's cold and it's miserable, it's still dark outside.
Yeah, getting up in the dark is rough.
My body says no. It's just, you know, I think we're wired to, you know, before we had lighting and before we had, you know, things like central heating and all this kind of thing, our bodies would have been a lot more in tune with with the sort of the light hours in the day. So you would have gone to work in the fields, or, you know, you would have been a hunter gatherer, and you would have worked, you know, you would have been outside till it was dark, and then you would have gone either, you know, gone to sleep, or you would have you know, sat around a fire maybe, and then fallen asleep around there. You know,
maybe that's a lot of what. But if people have, their mood is not as good perhaps in the winter, maybe that's just a natural reaction. Just keep you use less energy, stay in the house, chill out.
How comfortable is your bed? Because since I've had my new bed,
you don't want to get
out of bed. I do not want to get out of bed. But my old bed is like, yep, get up, go.
No, my bed's really comfortable, but it also helps having a girlfriend that's kicking you out of bed as well, because she wakes up like clockwork.
I have to do a 3-stage exercise to get out of bed. Well, I have an alarm that goes off 15 minutes early, and then I down a pint of water on the bedside cabinet because I'm normally dehydrated from the sleep.
Sounds extreme.
And then the proper alarm goes off 50 minutes later. I switch that off, but then another alarm at exactly the same time goes off at the opposite side of the room.
It sounds horrible. It sounds like some sort of torture.
I have to. It is. So I have to get out of bed to turn it off, and then I'm up.
I hate
so
that.
I might as well.
That's like the worst. I cannot.
Otherwise,
I hate getting out of bed to turn it off.
Otherwise, I'd snooze it like 8 times.
That's what I do.
Or just fall back asleep. And
I
2 hours later.
I snooze it probably 3 or 4 times, but each time I snooze it, I'm more awake. So
no, I'm not though.
Eventually, I get there.
Yeah. I'm not.
You know, no. I find
it's just
the
morning
my
will always be.
My snooze is only like 5 minutes. So as soon as it, you know, like I can't fall asleep in 5 minutes. So
I've had
20 minutes. I'll be snoring again.
I've actually got a 3 thing, but it's like the first one is like, it's about you're about to wake up, and then when my second alarm goes off, I get up, I have a shower, and then while I'm having a shower, the third one will come up. It like just reminds me, it's like 9 o'clock.
I mean, so you've got an alarm go off when you're awake.
Yeah.
To remind you, you're awake.
At the time, I'm like, right, it's 9 o'clock. I'm in the shower.
That's organised. That's very organised.
Well, I've part of where I decide not to eat until lunch. That hour I'd normally spent cooking food in the morning. It was sort of a lot of what I missed was just the morning ritual of cooking.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what, so I've sort of slowly replaced it with a really elaborate morning ritual to sort of get me feeling sort of awake a bit quicker.
Yeah.
Which consists, I get up and then I go straight and meditate for 20 minutes. And then I do a sort of 10-minute guided meditation with some sort of breathing exercises. And then I do a 5-minute morning yoga video just to get the blood flowing, stretch out a little bit.
Are you wearing a poncho whilst you do this that looks like you're from the 70s?
No, I'm butt naked.
You're butt naked?
Butt naked.
That's just how I pictured you.
Just socks pulled up.
Oh, God.
And then
there's not sandals involved with these socks, is there?
And then I get in the shower with a podcast on and do a 3 minutes under a cold shower, cold immersion therapy.
Christ.
And then but
it sounds like a brutal wake up. I'm not being,
it is, but it's one of those things. I've kind of accepted I will always feel terrible in the morning, so I might as well just attack it.
See, I don't feel terrible.
So then I feel like
the way you describe it, you sound like you feel like it's almost like, I mean, I'm picturing like how I would have a hangover if I woke up.
Yeah, that's how I feel every morning.
That's awful.
Every morning.
Christ.
That's surely gotta be, is it, if you always had that?
Yeah.
I have this.
Sounds insane.
Yeah, because when I wake up, I have this lovely, warm, kind of fuddly, cozy feeling. You know, it's
No,
like I'm like,
I feel
ooh,
like I've been
you know,
drugged in the
Harry
night.
went to Disney World.
I lay.
I feel like I was
birds tweeting at him.
Systematically gang raped during the night.
Signal lost.
I knew nothing. Knew nothing about it.
Really?
Yeah.
God.
It's not good.
I remember-
But like I say, the diet, well, the way I'm eating at the moment, I feel much less bad.
It's
I used to
interesting.
feel a lot
It's
worse.
amazing how people's like metabolisms and their their physiology, how they actually how they can experience waking up in such different ways.
But yeah, there we are.
Yeah, I
Maybe
found
it's
I've
'cause-
started
well,
drinking coffee again now.
Have you?
Yeah, and I managed to stay off caffeine for several months, but one, I really enjoy coffee, absolutely love it. Proper coffee. I'm a bit of a snob. I can't stand instant
Yeah,
coffee.
I
really.
keep quitting, but
sorry,
we got a coffee machine.
Yeah,
How do you have a coffee
It's
machine?
it's
You
just
said.
too good.
Edan's just poured me an instant coffee, which I
Yeah, you have a
I've
coffee
got
machine.
I've got a proper coffee machine.
Why have you never made me a proper coffee?
Actually, you don't deserve it.
Oh,
we-
oh, is there a worse insult?
Nah, I'll make you a nice one.
Oh, excellent.
Awesome.
Made
I'll
with self-made milk.
I'll expect that from now on.
It's funny because like when you're at school for like the last 7 years, you know, when it was back there, I used to go to bed at like 1 a.m, wake up at 6, fine, for 5-6 years.
Your metabolism's the quicker.
Really?
It's faster when you're younger, isn't it? I mean, you think back to when we were kind of 6 or 7, and I'd be up at like kind of crack of dawn, 6 o'clock in the morning, out of weekends, just to go and watch cartoons. You know, I'd be like,
Yeah, like 5 a.m.
Mutant Ninja Turtles
Make a
is
cup
on.
of tea.
I am down there. You know, Pokemon. Oh, I couldn't get enough of it. You know, what else did we used to watch? There was this thing called Up on the Roof. And it was great. You know, just be
Especially
all
Inspector
the-
Gadget, Nickelodeon.
Nickelodeon. You're slightly younger than me though, so you might have had a different suite of.
I'm like 2 years younger than you.
Yeah, but cartoons changed rapidly.
It's
You
not
know,
like
they
the
moved
80s.
on. Like, I loved Mutant Ninja Turtles. I thought that was great. That was
Yeah.
one of the best things. I wanted to be like Raphael. Like,
I think it was a bad boy. I do like the idea. I like, you know, we got a big shed out of the back,
yeah,
and it was raining the other day. I just had to get something, but I just stood in the shed. And I was like, I love those white noises, like raining sounds, some shit. Like I'd want a house with a glass roof just so I can hear all this stuff.
yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's be amazing. I'm
Well,
like,
there's something-
surely you get that experience living where you are, so far
Yeah,
away from
there's something
traffic
very
and
well.
everything.
I love. Sometimes I just step outside at night with a cup of tea or something like that, or if I've got a beer or something,
Hear the
and
crickets.
I literally just listen and just like to enjoy. You know,
It's so important to, I've sort of those moments recently.
It's the
But sometimes you get sort of so wrapped up in your own head thinking about
Yeah.
like what you got to do and what you got. Sometimes you just got to stop and breathe and
Enjoy-
just go.
enjoy
I'm
being
stood in a
alive."
beautiful place right now.
Yeah.
I did that the other day. Just stood next to the pond, and I was like, I'm just going to sit down for 10 minutes and
Yeah.
just watch the ducks going past. And I was like, wow, I don't do this enough.
Yeah.
That's why. Yeah, I'll go through periods of not meditating, and
Yeah.
then when I do it again regularly, it makes such a difference. Reminds you to just be present every so often.
I think meditation can come in many forms as well. It doesn't just have to be, because I'm picturing your meditation is quite sedentary and it's about focusing the mind and finding a calm place and, you know, gathering your thoughts and that sort of thing. But I find meditation for me comes in sort of the form of you know, physical exertion and that sort of thing, and also but in a place that I enjoy as well. So but the scenery is very important for me. So just looking and taking in a nice sort of view, that to me that is,
Well, I think
you know, but on my own and in quiet, that to me that's like the epitome, that's my meditation.
Yeah, I
That's,
think really, meditation is almost any time you're in flow state is
Yeah.
meditation. When you're in the present moment
yeah,
without
yeah,
past or future. But the way of just the beauty of doing it with the breath is you always have access to it, and it's a good way
Yeah.
of training. You'll if you're not in, all of a sudden you'll notice, oh, I wasn't in the present moment there. Just bring it back to the
Yeah.
breath. It's a very measurable
yeah,
place to bring it back to. But yeah, like running is definitely meditative. Like I'll do a 5k run once a week, and I'll do that more for my mind than my body.
Yeah. I find
just-
running is brilliant for clearing the mind.
Absolutely.
Because you can't be thinking about loads of different things all the time. I find it actually, you know, it's uplifting. I'm kind of, it's not like my brain's not thinking, but it's only thinking about very few minute little things, and it's focused, and it's just it gets rid of the fuzz.
There's something about running. Yeah, it doesn't matter what's going on in life. You just go
Yeah.
for a long run, and you get back, and you're like,
Life is a
it's
little
all
bit
right
better
now.
Yeah. It's like the way I imagine the way I feel is when if you're working on, say I'm sitting on my computer or my desk and I'm working on something, at the back of my mind I've got something niggling about, I've got to get out there and I've got to do an oil change on the quad bike or something like that. You're actually, again, I'm not in the present. I'm working, but I'm thinking about the next thing, and I've got this stack and build up of things that I've got to sort out in my life, and doing something like running or meditation, I think definitely helps. It's pressing the reset, and it's getting rid of that layering effect in your brain, and you're just down to the bare basics, and it makes life more simple and just makes you feel better.
Yeah, I think it's very important for me. Yeah, when I need to meditate and have some sort of physical activity.
Yeah.
Otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd go stir crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I need that. Yeah, bringing back to the present and the endorphins from a hard training session.
Yeah, I definitely get a lot of endorphins from running. That's one of the things. I can just feel it. I mean, I can feel absolutely horrible before I go for a run. I can feel horrible pretty much 3/4 of the way through it. But I guarantee the last quarter of a run, I usually feel great.
Is that because you know it's coming up? It's just finishing.
Well, yes, it's some of that. Some of that is I've done a good workout. I'm coming towards the end. I'm feeling good, and then when you finish, and I'm like, I'll stretch or something. I feel great. I feel great afterwards. It's like, that was good.
Especially if it's out in nature as well. Nice trail run and running along as a sunset.
Completely naked.
I think it's a very completely naked
in front of the sheep.
I was going to say it's a very primal state. That's taking it to the next level. I want to get some barefoot shoes.
Something I've actually started doing is I don't do it all the time, but occasionally I actually if I'm going after the sheep or going to check the cows or something like that, I do it on foot. I put my running gear on and I run round. So it's kind of like the running shepherd, and it feels great, and it's running with a purpose, and there's something quite if sheep get out somewhere, they're in the wrong field or something like that, and I've got to put them back in another thing, and I'm running around and you're focused on the job in hand, and the physical exertion becomes sort of a lot easier, and you'll be up and down onto the sea wall and jumping across ditches and jumping over fences and gates and that sort of thing, and it's you're achieving something.
Still with the bare feet, you mean?
No, not with bare feet. No. This is no with trainers on, but it's still something. It feels, and it's something about chasing an animal as well. It's I'm not chasing them so they're distressed. I'm just moving them around, but there's something quite primitive and primeval about that.
I used to really love running with the dogs.
Yeah,
like Darcy and her brother Murphy used to do it all the time. It's such a shame now because I can't. Now we've got Bieber. Every time she comes across a hare, she just takes
bolts.
it off. So I can't go.
Right.
Such a shame I can't go running with her.
Yeah,
but that was kind of our fault. We should have taken her to gun dog training early on.
Yeah,
because as a breed, they've got such a high prey drive.
They just want to chase things all the time.
I don't think. Yeah, and the fact she's caught things before, and she does catch things. She sort of got But it might still be possible to sort of snap her out of it.
Probably a bit too liberal in her early training. Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, well, and also we'd never had a dog with sort of prey drive like that before, so we didn't sort of quite know how to deal with it.
Hunt down a rabbit until I met Bieber.
Yeah. Do you think there's any hope in being able to train her this late in life? Do you think if the right person got hold of her
she's pretty
put some work in?
Yeah. Oh, she's actually really good. She's really well behaved, and she rarely does it.
Yeah.
Now
your mum
really
probably
takes
not.
Off. We have a GPS tracker on her just in case she takes off, but she never does. But there's just a certain walk we can't take her on because she remembers. There's always
she knows
hares
she can find
we
stuff.
just take her different way. Yeah. And she's super intelligent. She's really trainable.
Yeah.
But I just wouldn't. It wouldn't be an enjoyable run.
No, because you're stressing about that all the time. You're worrying about that all the time. Yeah. Could you not run with her on a lead? Could you not put her on like a harness lead?
I have done that, but she pulls a lot.
Oh right,
It's just not very. It's just not. Again, it's not very.
Not very enjoyable. Yeah, that's a shame. Yeah.
But no, it's all good.
Yeah.
I feel like
Or
I
you-
was waiting to say something
you
else.
say
I've
something.
completely forgotten what it was.
Shibbaloo.
to be a tongue.
That might have been it.
Tip of the tongue.
Tip of the tongue. What was it? I don't know.
Anticipation is
Feel
killing
free
me.
to say something else while I'm thinking.
Yeah, so... Good.
Good. Goodness.
Oh my goodness.
We're sitting here with like a kind of a gradient of beards. Actually, I've just noticed. Like Kirk, you've probably got a little bit of stubble going on, a little bit of kind of maybe three or 4 days unshaven, and then I'm probably sitting here with girlfriend.
Evolution of Matt.
Girlfriend's gone away.
Yeah, I
got
think yours is the least
got a few
trimmed.
Yeah, a few days and get away with it, and no one sees me where I work, so it's I can get away
Hanging with a sheep.
looking a bit wild and bushy. And then we've got Edan to the left, who's just look at the size of that.
That man's a bit manic.
You could use some. You could lose a few days in there.
Probably could. I feel like just growing it a little bit. I've always trimmed it down. I just think, you know what? Let's just see how far I can get.
It's amazing how facial hair can change the shape of someone's face, though. I mean, if you, I always find people who've got a big beard and they shave it off. I always think they look ill when they lose the beard because they've got a certain roundness and a kind of like.
I think it's worse in the summer though, because then you've got a pale.
You've got a tan line as well.
Oh
yeah.
no, I'll definitely trim this down for summer. This is just like a leading towards the winter.
Yeah.
You might grow it out for the winter and then hit spring. Just
winter coat.
Winter coat. I tell you what, if we leave it for a few more months, you'll get big.
I never completely sort of fine shave anymore. I don't. What do you call it when you shave right to the kind
Clean
of
shave.
like a close shave?
Yeah.
I don't really do a close shave at all anymore.
No,
I used to when I first started getting a bit of stubble, but
Then
I find
you turn to a man.
Well, I find it's with a razor. It scrapes the skin and it's painful.
I'll use a razor just on the little stubbly bits
Oh,
there,
really?
and
Yeah, I
these
clean
bits
these
here.
up. I just clean the top.
But then I
and the
just
neck.
trim the.
No, I've got clippers, but same as like hair clippers. But I just take the guard off and then I just use that, and that takes it down within a sort of
Savage.
just a little. So I've got a little bit of bristle still that I can feel, but it doesn't cause half the irritation to my skin.
Yes, if it's I don't get any irritation from beard.
It's not irritation. It just dries my face out. Just
Well,
feel
you
it
should condition then.
yeah, but I don't like putting greasy, oily things on my face.
No, it's just like a moisturiser. It's like your hands. Your hands don't.
I have this theory.
Though.
I have this theory. I feel like if you start moisturising, you've got to keep doing it. Like I feel there's like a
I think with Vaseline, like your or like chapped lips, but it's like your hair conditioner. You're not going to condition your hair.
But if you look in a lot of products, there's lanolin in a lot of products, and especially face conditioning products. And lanolin is something that actually dries your skin out. Like it's something that's
Get all natural, conditioners.
I mean, this was something that I think I was having a chat with my doctor, and they were telling me about lanolin, and I don't know if I've been completely fleeced, but she was saying something about it does dry your skin out, and it's in a lot of commercial, off the shelf products. That's why real proper dermatological cream doesn't have like lanolin in it.
Shall we've reached an hour?
Reaching out.
Shall we end there?
Yeah, because we'll probably start talking about cosmetics, and I'm sort of
I think we should probably end on conditioners.
yeah. I'm talking about
Dry beard.
And the last time I went to the doctor, she got me to bend over, and
Yeah.
On that fine note.
your,
On that fine
your
note.
morning
On that
skin
fine
routine.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Good job.
Farewell.